My skin, ebony color, beautiful. Deep, rich mahogany color, beautiful. Mocha chocolate brown color, beautiful. Tan color, beautiful. Sun-kissed color, beautiful. I am the color of beautiful. So beautiful. I am so beautiful. They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. When I behold my reflection, I see beautiful. My eyes are beautiful. When I look at them, my mind sees beautiful. My hair is beautiful, dark like the black night in Tunisia, soft like lamb's wool. A crown fit for the beauty of a queen. It remains to be seen how so much beauty gleams from my hair, my dark skin, so beautiful. I am the color of beautiful. So beautiful. The color of beautiful.
Dark and lovely, I am the color of beautiful. Wonderfully made, color of beautiful. God made me
I stand in my space, the color of beautiful. When I look at my face, the color of beautiful. In every place, covered in God's grace, every dream I chase, no longer displaced, disgraced, or misplaced. I just embrace that I am the color of beautiful. Welcome to Beautiful Color Conversations. My name is Dr. Karen Moore. I am the founder of I Am the Color of Beautiful global spoken word initiative and movement, where we are globally redefining the standard of beauty for women of color. And our focus is on eradicating colorism in communities of color across the globe. We are so excited for our show this morning. Today, we're going to be looking at color through a different lens. And we have a very special guest with us today who is going to help us to do that, to look at color through a different lens and look at colorism in a different way. So I always let you guys know that colorism is the philosophy that Typically, it's the philosophy that darker skinned women are not beautiful, darker skinned women are not worthy or valuable. And that's pretty much what we address. But we have to also not exclude women who are lighter skinned and the things that they also encounter as Black women as they navigate. So we have a very special guest who we're going to bring on now. Mrs. Nicole Corbin Shaw is here with us today to talk about colorism through a different lens. Welcome, Nicole. Hi, beautiful. Can you hear me?
Hello, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here with
I
us
can.
today.
It's a little
And we have this
internet.
opportunity to hear from you and to be able to glean on your story. So I'm going to read Nicole's biography. There's some clicking or something. What's going on with our sound here? Okay. Nicole Shaw is a devoted wife and mother of 5 children, aged from 22 down to 7 years of age. Nicole, along with the support of her husband, Dennis, founded the nonprofit She Worth. I don't know what that is. Hang on for a second. Okay. With the support of her husband, Dennis, founded the nonprofit She Worth. She Worth was formed to empower and strengthen families of all females of all ages and backgrounds to acknowledge their self-worth through education and leadership. She Worth is a dream come true. After years of her working with young women, developing a strong desire to change in the community. She also works with women to promote healthy relationships between mothers and daughters. Nicole says, I am a biracial woman of an African American father and a Caucasian mother. After her parents' divorce, she went to live with her grandmother, who thought it best that no one know Nikki is half Black. And this would work, and her aunt explained later as a teen during a conversation about why she was accepted in the family over some of her other mixed family members. Nikki says, I passed. From the age of 7 to 16 years old, she posed as a white girl, even having to relocate and live with her father due to racist behavior in an all-white school district at the age of 16. Nicole says, I knew I was denying me, and this road of feeling ashamed, less than, and insecure took me down many paths on my way to find acceptance in others. I now know that this happened to me, but it's not about me, it's for others. Whatever the battle is, or what started it in the minds of our youth who grow up into women with the girl inside who is trapped in the soul of the mothers of this world. I will keep inspiring others to see their true identity. This goes for any ethnicity. Nicole will continue to tell her story, being transparent about the pain of her past. We can all relate to pain, but we can work together to create real change. Welcome the beautiful Nicole Shaw. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so Nicole, let's start. But you can't hear me? We're having a little trouble with our sound.
It's very.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. All right, let's try to bring you in again. Okay, can you hear me okay? All right, hold on, Nicole. Can you hear me? I think you're frozen.
Yeah.
All right, hold on. Nicole, I'm going to take you out. Come back in, okay? Try to come back into the feed.
Come back in?
Yeah. Okay, hold on. We're going to try to get Nicole back. She has such an amazing story, and we want to make sure that we can hear her loud and clear. So she's going to come back in. And in the meantime, I want to talk to you about colorism and the hurt and trauma that happens with colorism when we don't talk about it and when we don't address the issues that separate us. Colorism came from slavery, and it was the separation, and the slave owners believed that in separating and causing division between the slaves who were darker colored and those who were lighter colored, that would keep us from being able to be united in anything that we chose to do. So colorism still exists in our society in this time. It still is an issue in our society. And so we have these conversations because conversation is what brings about change. We're learning that so much as we deal with all of the things that are going on in our country right now. The conversation is crucial for us to be able to make the changes that we're looking to see in our society. And it's very important that we open up and be willing to listen and be willing to understand and be willing to really have these in-depth conversations, not just, passing conversations here and there, but it needs to be an ongoing conversation so that we can all begin to understand each other, all begin to acknowledge each other's hurt and each other's pain, so that we can work past the issues that affect us on our daily basis in our daily lives. And so it's so important for us to be able to talk to Nicole today. Let's see if we can get her back. Okay, Nicole, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, we can hear you good now. Great. All right, great. Thanks for coming back in. I know we pray. When we deal with this technology, we got to pray.
Yes. Yes.
It's a constant praying and laying on of hands, right?
Yes. Yes.
So we're so
Exactly.
glad to have you back. We're so glad that we can hear you now. So, um, just start by telling us your amazing story. I know that as you and I have talked, and I have heard so much about your story and the things that you have come through and the things that you have endured. So, if you would go ahead and just start telling us this incredible story of yours.
Okay. I just want to thank you first of all for having me. Thank you very much. All right. So, my mother and father were married. When my mother met my father and they got together, my mother was disowned by her parents. So her sister also married a black man as well. So when my mother and father married, it was pretty much my mom left with the clothes on her back, is how it was. So that kind of sets the tone right there to let you know that the family did not agree with interracial dating, marriage, or whatever. So at the age of 7 years old, I ended up relocating. And what happened was my parents got divorced. We lived with my aunt, lived with a couple people, and my mother wanted to relocate. So my grandmother is the one who came around and started to help my mother out. And I often tell people that I hope that they don't judge my mother, because when you hear this story, it's going to sound a little funny, like, well, why would somebody do that? But I've been a divorced woman with kids and been a single mom. And it's not as bad and nasty as it actually sounds. So I just want to make that clear. Um, so my grandmother told my mom that she thought it would be better if people didn't know that my father was black, because even the way that I look now, if you see the way I looked when I was younger, you would see clearly that you could not even, there was no way you would ever guess. So we were living in Swedesboro at this time, and I finished second grade there. And I had a black Cabbage Patch doll. And let me just say this. When my mom sat down to have the conversation with me, I could tell that my mom was really uncomfortable. You know, as a child, when something is uneasy, children are really good judges of character. So my mother sat down and she explained to me that it was best if I didn't say anything. The funny thing was, is I never thought about it. And I know my mom thought the same thing, but I knew that's what she was pretty much told to do. So I had a black Cabbage Patch doll. Cabbage Patch dolls were really, really big back then, in the 80s, 83, 84. And it was chocolate, because my dad bought it for me. And he said, do you care what color your doll is? And I said, no, I don't care. So I had a nice little chocolate brown doll. And of course, that was one of the main things, why would a little white girl be carrying around a chocolate doll? So she asked me for my doll, and I gave her the doll, and she told me she would put her away for a while for me, but she promised to keep her. So when my grandmother started to wrap the doll up. She wrapped it up in clear plastic. And me, as a 7-year-old child, is looking at the doll saying, you know, she can't breathe. And that's what was so crazy about the current events that are happening and the things that are unfolding for people to see. When I look back now on my life, well, some years ago when I realized I was going to be telling my story, it was that was the time when I began to suffocate, because I had never thought that anything was bad with me. I didn't think anything was wrong. I didn't think that, you know, I didn't have low self-esteem. I was just playing. I didn't pay attention to the shades of people's skin, to be honest. I just thought this is how we all are. So she put the doll away, and I finished second grade in Swedesboro, and then we ended up going and moving to Florida. And my mother and I never had any more conversations. You know, I went to school. My school in Florida was very diverse. But the funny thing is, my mom asked me, you know, to this day, like, how come you didn't say anything? I think a lot of times that's what children do. You know, they hold secrets and they don't say anything, but all along it's like this, you know, as you grow and as long as you hold that secret, it just kind of manifests inside. And so, you know, even when I went to the playground, I didn't know who I was supposed to go play with, because I knew what I looked like, you know, but I was like, okay, if I go over here, you know, they may find out that I'm half black. If I go over here, they may not like me because they think that I'm white, you know. Like, so it became, you know, a serious problem, and it became something that caused me to go down a lot of paths during life.
Right.
And I really was very insecure. And it caused me to, I hate to get stuck. This is the first time I think I've gotten stuck saying this,
Oh,
but
that's
it caused me to look for so much acceptance in other.
yeah.
It caused me to look for acceptance in other people, and I identify with, you know, the black kids, you know. And you know, I grew listening to all kinds of music. You know, my mom said, you listen to all kinds of music, you get along with all kinds of people, you know. And it got to the point where in my, I guess my earlier, almost teenage years, I had a best friend. My friend was white. And, you know, I felt the need to tell someone my secret. And so I told her. It was no big deal. You know, I was even scared that if she told her father, that she wouldn't be allowed to play with me or wouldn't be allowed to be my friend anymore. And it wasn't the case. But I asked her to just keep it quiet. And so I remember even confronting a friend of mine who was white. She was one of the first white girls I knew that was actually dating outside her race. And this is probably like in middle school. And I remember saying to her, like, why do you want to date black guys? Because I just wanted to, you know. And she had her own reasons, you know. And I was nervous for her because this is what was inside of me. And I know that people will tell their children this. You have a lot of white parents that are scared for their kids to have interracial relationships because of the child, but it's really not. It's not. That's not the problem. The problem is the thinking. The problem is the heart. So basically, around ninth grade, my mother was having, you know, she lost her job. We were going through some different things. Um, and she decided to move. So after 8 years, even being in school and having a girl come up to me, you know, I was asked a few times, you know, and I couldn't understand why they were asking me, but I would deny it. And I remember being in the hallway in ninth grade and someone coming up to me saying, Nicole, is your dad black? And she was actually one of my friends who was Mexican. And I used to spend the night at her house and everything. And I said, no. And I just took off running. I slammed my locker. I took off running down the hallway like someone was chasing me, you know, but no one really understands, you know, how you feel. And I always identified, like, you know, dancing. I remember them saying, oh, look at the white girl. She's got it. And I just laugh because I'm like, yeah, I got it, you know. um, and another thing was
Yeah.
too, like my body shape, everything was like a black girl. You know, and I would in the three fastest runners in school, me and two other black girls, and it was just like I don't know what it was. I felt a draw because it's just like a child who's been adopted, you know. And you look at a child who doesn't grow up in a family, you long to know the other side of you. You long to know where you come from,
Right.
you know, and that was missing in me, but I didn't understand none of that then. So we moved to Tennessee, and this is the beginning of my 10th grade year. We moved to Tennessee. My mother had no idea, and you know, none of us had any idea that this town would be like this. Small town in Tennessee. Of course, in Florida, I stayed outside. So I would be like, even now, I'm very tan compared to what I normally am from sitting in the sun. And I was very dark. And I remember being asked when I got there in school, I noticed the school was all white, not a black person in school, not a black person living in the town. And I remember when a kid said to me, he said, "Why are you so dark?" And I was used to, lying. So I said, "Oh, because I'm from Florida." And he says, "Oh, you'll lose that tan soon." He says, "And just so you know, the KKK is alive and well in this town. I can show you my granddaddy's card." And to be honest, I didn't really know what the KKK was, but I had a feeling that this was something that was bad. So of course we had no Google, we had nothing then. I didn't even go home and tell my mom. I never asked her. I never said anything to her about, any of this. So my plan was I was going to graduate high school and go back to Florida, even though I was from Jersey, because that's what I was used to. And I realized, after everything had came out, I told my mom, I said, in Florida, I could have just been whatever. And this is after the fact. But in Tennessee, I made friends. I hung out with people. I had a lot of first experiences there. I also was in that town. I also experienced rape, not due to being black, but in that. So basically, once all these things started to happen, a lot of it was because of me wanting acceptance. I had a boyfriend for the first time there, and I was freaking out inside because I'm like, what happens if he finds out? And I had a cousin that I met, and her dad was a preacher, and I went to church with them. And so I got baptized there and everything. And then I found out after she moved that the secret I told her, she called and wrote and told everybody else. And so my junior year of high school, I go to get in the lunch line, and a girl comes out and says to me with all her friends, she says, "So we heard your daddy was a nigger." And I just looked, and everything that I had inside of me just dropped. I felt like I lost my air. And I knew that I needed to respond, and I needed to respond quickly and where it was believable. And so the attitude in me came out, and I said, "My daddy ain't no nigger," because he wasn't. But I knew at that moment I had to do something because I was scared, and it got to the point where she said, "Well, that's not what we heard." So at this point, this is where everything changed. My life became like a movie. I never went home and told my mom. I don't know why, but I didn't. Um, I walked those hallways, and it started to get to the point where no one was speaking to me. Lockers slamming. They would plan things when I would come down the hallway. They're slamming lockers and everything, calling me half breed, zebra, all kind of things. And I would be in assembly, and they would send it down the aisle that I was going to get jumped afterwards. And basically, I was just trying to live like this wasn't happening. And as people trickled off from being friends with me, I received one last phone call from a friend of mine who I considered to be really close at that time. And her grandmother was on the line with her. And she called me and she asked me, and I said, no. I told her the story again. I said, "No, my dad's not." And she said, "Well, that's what everybody's saying." And my grandmother said, I can't be your friend anymore. So I just said, okay. Hung up the phone, never told my mom. I just held everything in. I go to school, no one's speaking to me. I decided to play, I don't know why, but I decided to just act like this wasn't happening. And I decided to play powder puff football. And we were out on the field running, and the girl who I call the ringleader, I would love to say her name, but I'm not doing that yet. I'm gonna wait on that. But trust me, I've looked her up on Facebook. But she was running to grab my flag. I was running behind her to grab her flag, and she turned around and she open hand smacked me right on my face. And when she did, it just stopped me dead in my tracks. And I wanted to fight, but I was scared to fight because I knew if I did, I was not going to be fighting one person. So I marched down the field, and this was it. I marched down the field. I went to the coach and I said, "Did you see what she just did?" And she just looked at me. She said, "I didn't see nothing." And you could see the handprint on my face. So I grabbed my bags. I went home. And that's when I told my mom, I'm not going back there anymore. And I explained to my mom what had been going on and everything. And that's when my mom tried to start making some moves. And she actually packed me up. We went to go stay with a friend in Ohio for about 2 weeks. and that didn't really work out. She was thinking about trying to take me there, and then she ended up calling my father and saying, look, we got to do something here. And that's when my dad sent me a ticket, and I came to Jersey to live with my dad at 16. And at this point, it was like this whole awakening for me. It was like, okay, I get to be me. Like, I'm going to live with my black dad, and I get to be the black girl, and
Yeah.
and when I got up here, it was not, it was basically everything was fine because I was in Jersey and I was out of that environment. But at the same time, when I went to school, the school that I went to was not really that diverse, to be honest. I was in Woodbury Heights. It wasn't that diverse. And I didn't really have, nobody questioned anything, nobody said anything or nothing like that. But there was always like when I went to homecoming, I went with a boy who was white. And in the back of my mind, I'm going, is his parents really going to like me? Like, are they really going to, or are they going to have a problem with this? And then my senior year, my mom ended up moving back up here. And my senior year, I went to Glassboro, which is where I left in second grade to begin with. And I graduated my senior year there. And when I walked into school, it was just like I had friends, a couple friends that knew I was coming and enrolling and everything. So of course the big thing was, she's black. So I remember somebody saying to me in the lunchroom, "You're black?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm white." And it was just, but I had some hate. It wasn't like necessarily like it was in Tennessee, but there was a little hate going on there. There were comments. There were like, is she really? And I couldn't understand how I finally got to come out and be me. But now it was a problem because I wasn't dark enough. And I'm not going to say that's just Glassboro High School because it's not. And it was only a few people there. It was literally like even the towns around who I hung with, wherever I went. And it's not really something that you're comfortable voicing because you want to know why. It's like
Right.
I really wanted to be myself, but I couldn't understand why I wasn't dark enough for you or why you thought I didn't have the problems, that other people had. And I remember being in debates with people about it. Race has always been a very touchy subject for me. I went through my anger. I went through being mad at white people, where I didn't, I was kind of disgusted with them. Of course, I love my family and everything. But, when I came up here at 16, I went to stay with my mom's sister, like on the weekends and stuff sometimes, my aunt. And she's no longer here. But she said to me, she said, "Do you want to know why?" She told me about the word mulatto. She told me about, why I was accepted in the family more than her kids, my two cousins. And she said it was because you passed. And I didn't know what that meant. So then she explained that to me, what that meant, And so the words of hearing, "You're so pretty," and "Oh, you're this," and "Oh, I've heard, you're so pretty, your life must just be beautiful." And when I think about all the things that I allowed in my life just for someone to love me, when I didn't understand that, number one, God was my provider, my
Right.
protector, my everything. All the things that I just wanting someone to accept me, anybody of any color. And then of course that goes into men. It goes into relationships, and you find yourself that you found out later you're wearing a mask, you know.
Right.
And when I was 7 years old and did go to kindergarten, I did learn about Jesus. And I went to a Salvation Army church, and in the youth group there were black girls, white girls, everybody, all kinds. They did so much with us, and I never felt like they never treated anybody like there was something, you know, no stereotypical things, no nothing like that. They took us everywhere because my mom couldn't afford to do a lot of things, and they blessed me because honestly, when I found out about Jesus, my prayer from the time I was 8 years old was, "Lord, before you come, could you please let me grow up, get married, kids, and so I can see
Right.
what my babies look like."
So let me ask you. Let me ask
And
you
sure
a couple of
enough, I ended up.
questions. Can I ask you a couple of questions? So
Yeah, sure.
when you were, and I just want to tell everybody that I have said to Nicole, we had a conversation prior to this, and I told her that if I asked anything that she didn't want to answer, all she has to do is tell me. I don't want to answer that because this is not network news, and I'm going to keep pressing on a question that she says I don't want to answer. That is not going to happen here. But I want to ask
Mm-hmm.
you, what kind of was it like when you were living as a white girl? What was that like in terms of
did any race issues or questions ever come up? And were you with people? I mean, I know that you did say one time they used the N word when they thought they found out that your father was black. But outside of that, what was the language of the children that were white when they were talking about black people, or did they ever talk about black people? What was the conversation or the language that took place?
In Florida, there was never really a problem. There was never any. Can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear me? Okay,
Okay,
Karen.
I can hear you now. Yes. So you said there was never anything in
Okay.
Florida that came up.
In
Go
Florida, there
ahead.
was no. There was never an issue in Florida. It's funny. I think the issue was me because I knew that I had to, like, basically be quiet about it. Don't mention it. Don't bring it up. So I felt like, I felt like something was missing, but a lot of it was all in my mind because of what had been planted in there. And that's why I realized later on, I'm like, they call Florida the melting pot of the world. And I was just like, I could have been me there and everything would have been fine because of the fear that was instilled, for, to deny that part,
Right.
that's what made it hard. So Florida wasn't as bad, but it was in there to the point where it was just, you know, um, knowing that that's the thing about wearing the mask. No one else knows what you're hiding but you. So it's literally tearing you up inside, while
Yeah.
everyone else probably would have been fine with it. My friends, I know my friends would have been fine with it, but I felt like when I was around white people, like I was comfortable and everything, and I was comfortable around black people, but I didn't understand how to merge the two. It always seemed like there was a separation.
Right, right. So then as you continued, because then you spent about 9 years like this, right? It was about 9 years.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah, nine. Yeah, right in there in the middle.
Okay.
Hmm.
And then so it sounds like when you came to Jersey was when you began to feel like, but you still even had issues in Jersey. And it's interesting because Nicole and I have talked about this, that uh, and we did a show a couple of weeks ago on prejudgment. And when I first met Nicole, and Nicole and I have talked about this, we met at a Sister Time event, and it's a group of
Mm.
women that get together, and we have we talk about our businesses, we talk about our lives. It's a great thing. And I remember when Nicole came to Sister Time, and I was sitting at this table with some other women, and Nicole came in, and it's so amazing to me that even as I go through and I'm bringing colorism to the forefront, and I'm talking about colorism, and I'm talking about all this, that other part of me, when I saw you, jumped out, and because I told you when you came in the door, I was like, oh, here we go, here she come, here she come.
Yeah.
Here we go. And she gonna sit right by me. Okay. So it's like, here we go. Here she come. But the thing about it was you sat down and you must have had a day, man. You must have really had a day, because you sat down and you were like, I can't even believe I'm here. I can't even believe and I said to you, just breathe, sister. Just breathe. You're okay. So I was able to, in that moment, I was able to flip and not be that dark skinned girl that I was so used to many times being, that, okay, here come here she come. Becky with the good hair, right?
Yep.
Here she come.
Yep.
And so,
Yep.
but because we do that whole prejudgment thing, so that when you were working between the two parts of you, how did that like really translate for you, that you were getting to the place where you could be at ease with yourself, both as being white and being black? How did that come how did it come that you were able to just reconcile and be the whole woman that you are now?
Well, you build up a lot of thick skin over the years, and you start to realize that, even when I look at my grandmother never treated me mean. I know my grandmother loved me and everything. It was the way she was raised. And I had to start understanding that everybody has been raised a certain way up to this point because of, our previous history and, or what people are led to believe, I'll say. So for me, really, my identity, I say I was introduced to myself at the age of 28. And that is because I was married, got married at 19. I had three little girls, with him 11 years, married 9 years. Unfortunately, our marriage didn't make it. And I was in some relationships that were really bad, still carrying the same belief system in my head. Even though, yeah, I'm mixed and everything and I accept myself, I didn't understand that I really had these identity issues. And the first time it was told to me was in marital counseling. And I was really upset at the fact that someone had the nerve to say that to me at the time. And because I'm thinking, I don't have a problem. And then I realized, you know what, you do, because I went through these relationships. So it had went beyond my, racial identity or my ethnicity. It went beyond that. Now the problem was the acceptance that I wanted, the low self-esteem, the people pleasing that had came all into it, just wanting to be loved by somebody. I had gotten myself into some really bad relationships. So when I decided to go back to counseling for myself, it was because I was dating my now husband. We've been together 14 years, and I was dating him at the time. And I said, okay, what's wrong with me that, I keep allowing myself to get in these situations? So that is when I went to counseling and I found out that I was fearfully and wonderfully made. I mean, I had been in churches all my life and everything, but at this point, even though I had heard it before, when this woman who sat with me many hours and counseled me told me that I was fearfully and wonderfully made, it just clicked. I believe that was just the time in my life where God was saying, okay, girl, now I'm about to show you who you are. And it's been a process, all along. But that right there was when I realized, you know what, it don't matter what I look like, who likes it, who don't, or whatever. And I wasn't as strong then, but that's where things, the beginning of my change. So that's when I say I was introduced to myself.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so you were. What else did you? I didn't mean to interrupt when you were telling the story, but I wanted to get those particular
Oh, no.
questions in, and I think that also it's so important that, and this is one of the things that I do with I Am the Color of Beautiful is being able to bridge the gap. We have to, first of all, one of the things that I really
Mhm.
believe that has to happen for darker skinned women is that they've got to begin to tap into their beauty and feel their beauty and understand that they are beautiful and valuable. But there's also got to be a bridging of the gap because
Yes.
it was colorism was used to divide us. That, light is better
Hmm.
than dark, light is prettier than dark. But we have to also understand that our light skinned sisters do also go through things and have issues, which my sister did tell me. It's interesting when I was doing my theater show, Poetic Blues, and I would also always do brown skin blues. And my sister, who is light skinned, said to me, well, light skinned girls have blues too. And that was news to me because, we always felt like we were the ones that had the issues. But it's so important for us to understand each other and to have these conversations where we can understand each other. So tell us a little
Hmm.
bit about how it has been for you to even now navigate as a biracial woman when you've got to navigate these different spaces, being able to bring all sides of you to a conversation and bring all sides of you to the work that you do and all of that. Tell us some of how that has come about for you to be able to just be authentically Nicole.
With saying, yes, I'm backstage. Can
Yes.
you hear me okay? Okay. I would like to start out by saying that I started to realize that back when, back in the day when slavery was, even though, I'm going to say back then, when slavery was taking place, and you had, the rape happening, you had everything happening where lighter skinned babies were being born. I often like to say to people who have this thing with the light and dark skin is basically, I understand that they were viewed as better, and we know how the world viewed them. But my thing was, I used to always say, you were family. And did it not ever occur to anybody that even though the girl might have been in the house, because I've been told to my face, you would have been, you'd have been in the house, and it became like a joke. But at the same time, it's real. And the thing is wouldn't you think that someone, I know me, if I was there, I'd be looking out the window crying for my family because we're still separated. We're still who we are and still not being treated like fairly, and that was always an issue that I had, like a picture that I would have in my mind. I'm a visual person, so I'm always seeing things, and that's a picture I had in my mind. And it's a sad thing because it's just a way to me that there causes more division, because when we come together, it's, and there's a lot of me walking around out there, and it has been hard because I go to church. And I've been in and out of black and white churches, like all kind of churches. When I walk into a white church, there's not usually any kind of looks unless I come in with my family. My husband is darker skinned, I have 5 children. So when I come with my family, obviously, but I'm always taken for a white woman 90% of the time. When I walk into a black church, I remember going with my aunt to a revival at 12 years old. The greatest thing I thought I ever seen in my life. I couldn't wait to go there every week. And that was at CCU in Sicklerville. And I'm 12 years old and I'm like looking like this little piece of salt in a whole, church full of black people. But I had a ball in there. And that really changed my life just even more, even though I forgot some of that along the way, wanting, acceptance in different places. It was still a seed that was planted in me, and so when I walk in, I'm now prepared for the looks. I've went to Camden to a barbershop to get my hair done and felt like the girl was just so jacked up at the feeling and the vibe for me walking in and sitting in a chair and I'm with my husband, but I'm still getting looks and stares like, why are you coming up in here? You know what I mean? And I'm just laughing and smiling. And I thought to myself, do I have to announce it to get acceptance, or is it still not going to be good enough? And I've sat at the table with my husband while I've seen a older white woman look at me in disgust across the table, to the point where I've literally looked at her and said, you okay? Everything okay? Because I don't want to fight. I don't want to I went through all that already. What I recognize is that ignorance um, was taught, and some people that are out here, like you hear all these conversations, people getting upset about white people asking questions saying, how can I do, I don't understand, and I feel for them because they are really lost, and I am a person they can come to and ask questions. And I understand also my black brothers and sisters, because I'm like, you can't dismiss things. It seems like for years people want you to dismiss it. So when you have that meeting, it's almost like the meeting of the mind in the middle. It's like I don't know, it feels like a marriage. It's like, when a husband and wife get married and they become one. It's like, for me, there was never a side. So for me, it's the black and white is one. Like, honestly, if I had to unzip this, there's a black woman just coming out, a browner woman in there coming out,
Right.
and it's like, so when it came down to the seed for what I do with the girls, I know you have a delay, and I know you want me to keep
Yes.
going?
Yes, I do.
Or did you Okay. The seed that was planted in me for the girls actually happened. And I realized it was coming up in 12 years, 12 years ago. And my husband and I, at the time we were together, and I was living in an apartment complex in Glassboro. It's called Hollybush. And I lived there for 14 years. And so at the time, I'm coming home and there's 2 little black girls outside. I knew pretty much everybody around me. And when I tell you, they were fighting like grown women. I mean, cursing each other out and fighting like grown women. They looked like they were maybe about 7, 8 years old. And even the age is significant to me. And I remember saying, hey, and I'm like, do you realize how beautiful you are? Do you know who you are? Now, I had never said anything like this out of my mouth, and I said, stop that, and I walked in the house and I said to my husband, I said, I know what's wrong with us. He said, what you talking about? I said, I know what's wrong with us. I said, we don't know our power. We don't know who we are. I said, we are so strong. I said, we're so powerful. I said, we let you in. I said, we let you into here, here, and there. I said, we're the ones that get to say yes when you propose to us. I said, we are the ones who birth, world. We give birth to the people that are walking. I said, and we don't know who we are. And I was actually in the beginning of a pregnancy we had with our first son, who we lost at 5 months. And I was having a lot of issues. But the office at that time, I had went over to the neighborhood network center and asked if we could do some kind of program. And they had actually approved and said yes. But at the time, I was having so many issues that I couldn't commit. But I understand now that's because God wanted me to face some more things and overcome more before I started this. So you figure that was 12 years ago. And now we're 3.5 years in to She Worth, which is the group that I have for the girls. So there were definitely some things I had to face. I had faced racial issues on my job where I had to stand up for myself and write a letter, and do things the right way. But it put me through a lot. It took me back into what happened in Tennessee. The words that were said to me were the words that were said to me there. And it just triggered something. I was losing sleep at night. I was searching people up online and, trying to find out, like, are you still racist? Are you still, like this and that? And it really took me through something. And I also overcame a lot of stuff with my mom, just regular, I always say I had mommy and daddy issues, regular mother-daughter issues, and even with my father and stuff, because there are stages when God has you working with people, he's going to work things out in you first. It doesn't mean that you are fully just over everything, because there's always something that's, trying to get at you in a different form. But, you know, it's like I had to overcome and actually, I guess, have the testimony. I always say a testimony has a beginning and an end when you can tell the story of what, the good that came out of it. So I choose to look for the good in things. I choose to say that anything negative, even though I might be crying and falling down about it, I'm going to turn it into a positive, which is basically just, God turning it for my good. So I always ask myself, what am I trying to learn from this? So this is what I try to teach the girls. When She Worth started, my heart with She Worth is for everybody. There's no, it's not just for one type of person or whatever. But what I noticed was that I had all brown girls. I had mixed girls, and my goal in my heart was to teach females, period, of who you are. And I knew that having all these girls, I wanted to start telling them about where they came from. So I started buying movies and I started buying different things to show them, that you come from kings and queens. You are powerful. You have so much in you, and that we didn't need to listen to society try to tell us who we were, or make us feel like we couldn't be who we are. And down to the root of your hair, this color of your skin, no matter what. And I had some people that really did not agree with me in different areas, and that kind of hurt me. And it got in my head a little bit, saying that, well, maybe some Black people haven't had the same experiences as others. Some have said that they have had no bad experiences with white people, or they didn't understand where I was coming from. And I said, well, they choose not to look at the negative. And I said, well, I'm not showing the kids pictures of lynchings and stuff. I'm showing them where they come from originally, instead of just what we have been taught, the history over here. So that was very important to me. So we have conversations, we have talks, and everything is about empowering. It's about uplifting. I've come into entrepreneurship and all kind of things, but it's really for me to show them to look inside yourself before someone else tries to tell you who you are.
That we actually begin to tell our children. It's because if we can get our girls when they're young and help to mold them and
Mm-hmm.
to understand who they really are, it will make such a
Mm-hmm.
difference in their lives, and they won't have to be these broken 30 and 40 and 50 and 60-year-olds. If we get them while they're young and get them to understand who they are, that God made them in his image, which makes them just absolutely beautiful, regardless of their shade, it makes them absolutely beautiful. So that is such an incredible, incredible work that you are doing. So I'd like you now to
Mm-hmm.
tell us what you would tell your 6-year-old self,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that what you've gone through, what you would tell your 16-year-old self, And what you would tell your
Mhm.
early 20 something self, this road that you've traveled, what you would reach back and say to them. And then I also want you to speak to women who are biracial and who may be dealing with some issues regarding being biracial, especially now in this difficult time that we're in. If you could take a few minutes to do that, to say to something to them that would help them to continue to navigate this space that we're in. Because one of the things that I know I said to you is that I think that we've got to be complete in who we are. And wherever your background is coming from, I think it's so important if you can. And I don't know because I'm not biracial, so I don't know if it is an easy thing to embrace both sides. I guess depending upon what the situation is. But if you could just do that, your 6-year-old self or a 6-year-old girl, your 16-year-old self, early 20s, and then just the issue of growing up biracial.
Mhm. Okay. It was a little broke up, but I got you, I think. Uh, for my 6-year-old self, and I wrote some things down here. So I just want to, my 6-year-old self, I would just say, play, be nice to everybody, no matter what somebody tells you. And just really, if there's somebody that's sitting there that has no one around them, be their friend. For my 16-year-old self, I would tell them about how they're here for a reason. And I have told little girls the same thing too, but I think the understanding there, um, basically, you're here for a reason, and the world is a big plate, and that you are some flavor to the recipe of that plate, and you are needed. Don't give yourself away to anyone who has an interest. Make sure that you understand that you are special. For my 20 something year old self, I would put that, I would say, your choices and your wrong turns did not change your destiny. Again, reminding them you're still here for a reason. You're on your way. Learn from your past thoughts more than the actions that you've made, because the thoughts that we have in our head is what makes us act. So, change your mind, because that's the main thing, is changing your mind. Always and what God does, he renews our mind. He gives us a fresh spirit. He gives us a spirit to guide us. And I'm always trying to talk to the girls about God, teaching them to pray. And that's the biggest thing. I mean, that's for all ages. I even tell the little girls, I'm like, pray. Um, and basically to acquire your own personal inner worth before you worry about acquiring things. And this way you won't give yourself away. We have a hard time. I tell the girls all the time about their worth. I said, I take it into I'm like, you give someone your power. I said, y'all want that Gucci bag, and it's like you put all your power in the Gucci bag. You wouldn't give the bag away, but you'll give yourself away. And that was the biggest thing I had to learn about myself, especially with relationships.
Wow, that is good. That is good. You wouldn't give that Gucci bag away. Don't give yourself
Mm-mm.
away. That is good. Okay, so
Yep.
go ahead and speak to people who are growing up biracial.
Okay. People that are growing up biracial, I would say, I know a lot of times we have been in a situation where we felt like we had to choose one side or the other. And I really, really, really need you to embrace who you are, both sides, because you're denying yourself. You're denying yourself. And we are really, a bridge between this thing. Like, I keep thinking to myself, where are my mixed peeps at? You know what I mean? Where are the people who understands both sides? Especially, a lot of, I mean, you have the interracial with white men and black women, but you have a lot with, white women and black men. So your mother, is who you came from. And I notice a lot of us go to the black side, and then we have others that are on the white side more, on that side, because maybe mom, dated somebody, and then, it kind of went back to the white side, and for parents need to understand that if you have an interracial child, just because you may be white and be in a predominantly black area, and and you're accepted and everything, that's cool and all, but you got to make sure that you're teaching your child the history, just like any other black mom would do. And then at the same time, you got to teach the truth. My kids come home And I remember my daughter saying to me one time, mommy's gonna be the next Martin Luther King, because this is my life. This is what I've been speaking for years. And I had to laugh, and I thought, oh, how sweet that she sees me like that. But I run them in the ground with it, about who they are, and how they carry themselves. And one thing I want to say to parents too is that we also have to let our kids be who they are. Um, if you're, we have a lot of different personalities, and we have people who are a little more reserved, and they want their child to be reserved and stuff. And, it's like you have to let them be who they are. And all my children are different, and they all act different. They listen to different kind of music. I mean, I listen to country music. I grew up listening to AC/DC and all that, hip hop, R&B, whatever it is. But you need to, really like embrace who you are as a whole, and not leave anything out. Because be around some people, be able to be open. I wanted to say too, Karen, one of the things that I always wanted to say, the conversations that you have with different races. I used to always I'd see a white girl say to a black girl, "Can I touch your hair?" But then a black girl will say to me, an all black girl will say to me as a mixed girl, "Can I touch your hair?" And I'm like, "Yeah, here, go ahead." But I've seen the uprise and I understand it. But I'm like, we got to get to a point, if we want change, the change has got to come full circle, because obviously for years we've been trying to do this separate thing for years. And it brings me so much joy to see all of the white people coming together and helping fight, and that happened. That's happening right now. We got a lot of bad stuff going on, the virus, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I see that. But there is a big change that's happening, and people are rising up. And when you see people in other countries walking around wearing George Floyd's shirt on them, this makes me like, my insides is just like, it's jumping. You know what I mean? And we all have something that is going to be birthed out of this, you know. And it's like when Elizabeth saw Mary, and the baby in her womb jumped. You know what I mean? Like for me, this is like, I could cry, not because I'm sad, but because I'm so excited to see people come together. And people of, color, with the shades that we have, I am you. You're me. I identify with you. I see you. But when you see me, you think you know me. And I feel sometimes, I'm like, I want to be like, you don't even know me like that. Like, but I'm part of you. So there's a lot of me walking around. And if you are mixed and you are denying something, you are denying yourself. I don't care what side you're denying. You're denying yourself, because there is good and bad in everything. You know what I mean? And we've got to come together. You got to have the conversations. And I'm going to keep on having conversations. If anybody needs my help or needs me to come to their church, come to wherever, I am willing to do so. It's not about no money. It's not about none of that. If I can do that, it's for God. So I can't hear you.
That's because I was muted. It has been such a blessing. It's been such a blessing having you here. And I so appreciate you being transparent and willing to have the conversation. And I say again that what you just said is just so profound, and it's so profound for us as Black women, that we've got to stop assuming things about each other and be willing to have a conversation. We've got to stop assuming things because of what someone looks like, whether it be their skin tone, whether it be what they're wearing, whatever it is that causes us to be so prejudgmental with each other, and we're not willing to open up and have conversations, and going to just assume that a person is a certain way because of what they look like. We've got to get past all that, because if we don't get past all that, we're not going to be able to move forward to the things that we need to really happen here in this country for us as a whole. And it's going to be crucial that we have these conversations where it goes beyond just the dark skin and the light skin, and it goes beyond just Black people. It goes to everyone sitting down and being able to have a conversation and trying to understand, because you and I talked yesterday about just the fact that you people want to dislike me just because of the color of my skin. It just doesn't make any sense because you don't even know who I am. You don't know what my experience has been. You don't know what I've come through or what I've lived through. And there are so many stories out there that need to be told so that people can really begin to understand each other. That's what it's going to take. And the only way you can understand someone is to have a conversation. You've got to be willing to have a conversation. You've got to be willing to listen
That's
as
right.
well as being willing to talk. So I so appreciate you coming here today and being open and talk to us about your experience and your life. So if you can just have some closing words for us, and please let everybody know where they can find you and where they can find Sheworth and get to know more information about Sheworth and about you and about your mission. So if you would just tell us that. Now, give us some closing words and tell us all about where we can find you.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for having me. And she worth is basically what it is, all about self worth. It's all about knowing who you are. We do talk about God, or let you know what God did for me in my life and my mistakes. I share with the girls. I share testimonies, as it's appropriate and age and all that. It's about a sisterhood coming together, changing the dynamic of the hallways, being able to have conversations that are real, things that a lot of times we don't get to talk about in church. They always want to talk about relationships, and also entrepreneurship. I teach them, that there's a gift inside of you, your purpose, the reason why you're here. You don't even have to wait until you graduate high school to, start a business or do something, of course, with their, parents' help or whatever, and as I get to know people and I have connections, I always love to get involved with other organizations doing things, so we can kind of partner together and help each other out. And one of the main things that I am praying to God for is other women with hearts like mine. I will always be the founder of Sheworth. The Sheworth does not belong to me. It's a God thing. It's a kingdom thing. And what I need is other women who have a heart like mine, who want to help, who have a story, and this doesn't have a color, it doesn't matter what shade you are, um, and I want you to, even if you're ready, if you think you're ready to start a chapter of Sheworth where you are, that would be wonderful, because I'm one person. I can only take on so much. You know, um, I have started going around and going to schools and speaking and telling my story. And that's been happening for a few years now, but now picking up a little bit more now. And, I have a community that I'm in, but I can't be everywhere. So if there are women that are interested, I would contact me. My email is sheworth2017@gmail.com. The website is sheworth.net. We are on Facebook, Sheworth Movement. You can type that in, you'll see it. And on Instagram is Sheworth_. And you'll find at some point, you'll even find, my phone number. I think I posted my phone number on there too for people to reach out. And that's what's really is about. We believe it still takes a village. So, we're someone's, we need support, and that's all there is to it. So that's all I am. I call us like moms and stuff like that, and I also really strive to bring mothers and daughters closer together, so I'm even here for the mom or whatever, it don't matter. Everybody knows that I'm accessible to reach, they can reach me.
That's great. That is so great. Where can we get t-shirts?
The t-shirts, I have some t-shirts now. T-shirts are $20. I do have Cash App. It's Sheworth. You see it pop up. And I have PayPal as well. So if someone's interested in Sheworth t-shirts, they can reach out. You can send me a message on Facebook page.
Okay.
Reach me any of those. And then we'll also be doing first, because we are starting to run low. We're running out.
Fantastic. That is fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. And anything that I Am the Color of Beautiful can do to support you or to be there for your girls, please don't hesitate to contact me, because I would love to partner with you and be able to really talk to young girls and women about being the color of beautiful. We're all the color of beautiful. So just anything we can do, please let us know. It was wonderful having you here. I'm going to have some closing remarks. But Nicole, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bless you.
Okay, thank you. That was incredible being able to have Nicole here for us today. We are so, so, so glad that we were able to do that and to be able to connect with her and with She Worth. Thank you guys so much for being here. Have a blessed, blessed, blessed day, and join us again next Sunday. Next Sunday is Daddies and Daughters. So join us next week. Thank you.